Welcome to Schmidtless Live. I'm Kurt Schmidt, president and partner at Foundry. This show today is meant to educate and inspire leaders in technology and design. And I am really excited to talk to my good friend Laura King today about how you should be using LinkedIn for your job search. So before we get started, I do want to make a little quick plug that speaking of hiring, we're hiring at Foundry. So check out foundrymakes.com/careers. And then let's jump right in and start talking to Laura. Laura, how are you doing today?
I'm doing all right, just making it work, Kurt. Just making it
Crazy
work.
morning? Crazy morning?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So Laura, tell me about what you do and what you do these days. You've been in recruiting for, what, 15 years?
Yes. So done everything in recruiting. I've worked for large. I got my career started working at a company that did all the recruiting for United Health Group. So I filled like 50 jobs a month.
Wow.
In the beginning of my career. It was
Wow.
insane. I was hiring everything from a call center rep to a Six Sigma black belt. But this was the days of really high volume. And then I've been inside several search firms, and I've even done some help with some startups and everything in between. So my expertise is more in sales and especially marketing. But I would say that I know a little bit about a lot of things.
That sounds like the story of my career too. I know a little thing about a lot of things. All right, well, we want to jump right in and talk about obviously LinkedIn. LinkedIn has really changed a lot over the last, 5 years in terms of its importance in the job search. I remember years ago, it was just kind of nice to have, like you would just put things there, but it wasn't the central hub that it's really become today. And especially this year, with so many people working from home and the inability to even do interviews, everything from the recommendation engine to sales navigator to everything has just been huge. Did you see spending even more time on it as a recruiter this year than you have before?
It's where I spend all my days every day, Kurt. I mean, that's where I live. And kind of what I share with people who are applying for a job is I had actually had this conversation with another friend. I was on a podcast about a week ago, and he asked me what was more important, your resume or your LinkedIn profile. And your LinkedIn profile, because it encapsulates you as a whole person.
Yeah, it's more holistic, right?
And also you're less likely to lie.
Right. Yeah,
because it's public facing.
right. Yeah, it's harder to fudge the numbers, as it were, right? Yeah, and I've been doing a lot of career coaching this year. I mean, we still got tons of Americans out of work, so I've been really focused on trying to help people with their LinkedIn profiles and how they use LinkedIn. So I'm really glad you're here to join me because I'm excited to learn from you on ways that you've learned to enhance that profile. I mean, one of the first things I see is that people just don't even have their experience filled out. I mean, they have their jobs there, but they don't have even the experience filled out for what they did at those jobs and what their impact was. What are some of the things that you see are common mistakes that people make in their profile?
The first thing, which is so basic, is your settings. Your settings need to be public, and your settings for your photo should be public. Because if I can't see you, I mean, I spend all my time on LinkedIn. Recruiters spend all of their time on LinkedIn. And so if we can't see you to get a full picture, so that's the first thing. The second thing, the biggest mistake I see is people using it as kind of a Wikipedia page versus the value that you bring.
Yeah,
So
I
think
see
of
that
it
a
more
lot.
as your sales page, right? It's less about you don't have to talk about every single thing that you've done in the past, especially if you're transitioning and you're kind of shifting or pivoting in your career. You want to talk about what's going to be most relevant to the people who you want to find you. And so I want to give, if it's okay with you,
Yes.
I wrote things down. I
No,
was
no,
like,
that's perfect. Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Laura. It's one thing I coach people on all the time on their resume and on LinkedIn is telling those stories of impact versus just telling me what you did. I mean, I was talking to a project manager the other day, and they had a bullet point under a job that they were working for, and they said, manage timelines and budgets. And I was like, well, yeah, your title was project manager. I expect you to manage time. I mean, you're not telling me any new information here, but tell me about the impact of those budgets and timelines. Give me a sense of scale. Give me a sense of timing. All of those things. And do you feel like that's just a part of becoming a better storyteller about your? Because I think it translates into the interview process too. Then, right?
It's trying to put yourself in your customer's shoes, whoever that customer is, and be thinking about what sort of things are they going to want to hear about, right? Like what's going to be important for them to know about the things that I've done that could help them in their business. And so it's this paradigm shift of it's really okay, it's about you, but it's not about you. So yes, it's important, and this is what I see people have the hardest time is they have a hard time talking sometimes about and flaunting their accomplishments. And you don't need to think about it as it being flaunting. It's just to say, hey, I'm an expert in this area. I've done X, Y, and Z, and here's how I could help you. And so it's just this shift of thinking about what in my background could be valuable to someone else.
Yeah.
Especially things that you might not even think are relevant. I mean, you might spend time outside of work doing things that your next employer might think is so cool and that makes you stand out from the 100 other people that they're talking to.
Right. Because as a recruiter, as a hiring manager myself, I'm looking at what value you're going to bring to that or my organization. And just like you said, it might not be exactly just you did the exact type of work that we have here in the exact space that we did here. But like you said, if there's outside things that can help point to that impact, use those things as well. You don't need to just rely on, because I get so many people that are like, well, I don't have that exact experience, well,
yeah
makes a big
so
difference, right?
what I also want to make sure that people hear loud and clear is that 15 years in being in recruiting, I know pretty much anyone who I ping on LinkedIn is likely to engage with me. And so I know a lot of people are open to work right now, but do you know what's hurting them? And I think, Kurt, you and I talked about this before. That green circle that says open to work.
Yeah.
That's actually hurting you.
Yeah. I don't, where the heck did that thing come from? I mean, why did that start? It's like a meme now.
So think about this as dating. If you're too available, do you think the other party really is like, oh my gosh, I want to go out with that person?
Right. If you're screaming from your profile picture that I am ready to be married.
Or even your headline says open to opportunities or unemployed.
Yep.
What I have to just say from the bottom of my heart, like I think, a lot of people don't know what we know as recruiters. And what we know is that a lot of times our clients hire us to find passive talent.
Sure.
And passive talent means you're not actively looking.
Right.
And so it's a little counterintuitive, but you have to play a little hard to get.
Makes
not
sense.
Overly hard to get, but just don't
Yeah,
your settings again.
Yep.
Your settings, you can put you're open to opportunities that only recruiters see.
Yep.
And you're not going to have that green bar.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is like back to the be passive versus active, right? I mean, I see, if you're active, I mean, and again, I'd be really scared right now if I was out of work in this time because, again, it's such a weird time to be out of work and you can't just go and be interviewed and all these things. So, I see it almost as an act of desperation, just like you said, is like, let's scream it from everywhere, that I'm looking for a job, right?
Right. And there's a more strategic way to go about that. Um, you can selfless plug attend. um,
Yeah.
I'm doing a whole master webinar series starting this Wednesday, next Wednesday, the following Wednesday. And if this goes live later and people are watching this after October, still reach out to me. Just ping me, Laura King, on LinkedIn, and I'll get you the recording.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of very both tactical things as well as strategic things that you could be doing, not just from a optimize your profile, but how you can also be reaching out to people in a way that is not so desperate,
Yeah.
that people then want to help you. But there's some slight nuances in how you are going about doing that. And trust me, I know, because I get about 100 people reaching out to me a week. So I've seen it all, of like what kind of messages that, again, busy people will want to reply to.
Right. Well, that goes, and again, back to you. If people have interest in Laura's webinar, there's a link down in the description there. You can check it out. Um, the one thing, and I got a bit of a curveball for you, Laura, but one thing that has happened to me this year with the job coaching stuff is I've heard some people very concerned about privacy, and just like you mentioned, like putting their profile picture public and these other things. I've heard of, not a ton, but a few people kind of throw me the curveball of like, well, I'm not comfortable doing that, and I'm not comfortable, sharing that much information out there. I mean, what would be your advice to a person like that?
Well, I think, what it says from the outsider's perspective is that you just don't have it looks like you have an incomplete profile, right? And so if it's still intrigued and we want to talk to you, we're still going to reach out, even if you don't have the public
Yeah, all the
photo.
public settings and everything.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I'm not here to say do something that you feel uncomfortable with. You have to do what feels right to you. And I'm just giving the perspective as someone who gets paid to find top talent, and how we go about finding top talent, and how we engage with
Yeah.
top talent.
Yeah,
So
it's just going to make it a little bit, it's just going to make it a little bit more difficult the more privacy settings you have, right? But just like you said,
right.
it doesn't throw you out of the game, but it definitely can give you a bit of a handicap, right?
So what I really want people to hear loud and clear is that a lot of recruiters and even salespeople do this, but what we do, we've got some powerful tools at our disposal that we pay extra. Something's called LinkedIn Recruiter,
Yep.
and we do searches.
Okay.
So we'll do searches. So let's say we're looking for a VP of sales
Mm-hmm.
in Minneapolis, and we're looking for someone who's been in software as a service, right? So we're going to type in a lot of those keywords and the location. And I want to tell people the things that will make you come to the top of that list. Okay. So things that you probably don't know is that the very important section is obviously your headline. So what you put in your headline, which doesn't have to be your title, right? It can be other keywords. But your skills, your skills section
Mm-hmm.
is really critical. And
For
so
those
I know
keywords, right?
a lot of people have kind of glossed over that.
Yeah.
But if you start endorsing other people for skills, people will then return the favor.
Yeah.
So you want to pin the skills that are most important to you.
Yep.
So, and if you have any doubts on how to do this, there's a beautiful thing called YouTube and Google. Just type in your question and it'll show you the answer. So all
Yeah.
those like little how-to like, how do I pin the right skills on my LinkedIn profile?
Right.
Bet someone's made a video for that.
Oh yeah. Well, real quick, Laura, I've got a question from the audience here, and I want to post that here. So Nick here asks, when a company is acquired, should I list my experience as the company I worked for or the new company? What's your take on that, Laura?
Um, Gosh, you can go either way. So when the company is acquired, I mean, what you could do is you could leave the big, the image as the company that did the acquisition, because that's probably going to be a company that more people know of. But then in your headline, or your title, then you can say, something about that it was acquired. So you
Yep.
can put both of the companies in there.
Yep. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's smart to put both in there, but like you said, if it is a larger company, a bigger brand, if as you will, I mean, I think it's
Hmm.
good to attach yourself to that bigger brand first. But again, you can always tell that story, like you said, in your title, and that the company was acquired. So um,
Right.
I think
Right.
that's more positive. Well, back to what you were saying about the keywords, the recommendations too. I find that LinkedIn, like Google, likes those recommendations and likes those endorsements, and I've seen it in searches where people with more recommendations, more endorsements, their profile gets weighted a bit more. So I think my advice has always been get those recommendations, reach out to people and ask for recommendations and endorsements, and give them freely to colleagues and past people you've worked with. What have you seen work there in terms of the recommendation stuff? Does a recruiter pay attention to those?
Oh, absolutely. And especially if it's been 10 years since you've had a recommendation, it's time to get a few new ones. And you can make it super easy for someone to help you by even giving a sample 3 lines of, based off of the time that we worked together, here are a few things that you might be able to say about me. Make it so easy for them. And you know what? They might add in some of their own flair,
Right.
but it
Don't give
just
them
makes
homework.
it right. But I've had people reach out to me and say, Laura, I know it's been like 10 years since we've worked together, but I wanted to jog your memory about some of the things that we worked on together. Here's a couple sample bullet points. You can include what you'd like. And I'm like, oh, you took the time to think about how we engage and how we work together, and you made it really easy for me. I would love to give you a recommendation
Yep.
versus, oh, great. And I got to think about, oh, what do we do? And
Yeah.
okay, like, just make it really easy for the person to help you.
Yeah. Well, back to your point about, and I find this again, it's more Midwestern situation, but people taking credit for their work, and especially if they've been in a manager role, because you're taught as a manager, like the team is everything. You learn that the team is everything, and the reason why maybe you were successful was that team. And so I do find people saying, it's really hard for me to talk about what the impact was, what the team did, versus me being the manager that was leading that team. I can't necessarily take credit for the work for the team, can I?
But if you're leading that team, yes. Gosh, oh, I love our Midwestern. Yeah, no, it's you as the leader are the one that's directing this team. So absolutely, this is something for you to talk about. Absolutely.
Yeah, I again, the curveballs I've seen, and the stories we tell ourselves really it becomes so apparent when I'm looking at these LinkedIn profiles and resumes, because let's you and I just squash the one page resume here for a second, because again, I get that all the time too, is like, well, my resume shouldn't be longer than one page, shouldn't be longer than 2 pages. And I tell people, if you've got 20 years of experience, it should be I hope it's 2 pages. um
I sure hope so. Yeah.
yeah, right. If you have no experience or very very limited experience, then sure, one page is fine. I mean, as a recruiter, can you help me squash that old wives tale?
There's not a right way and there's not a wrong way. It's just your way. And you know what? You're going to get, if you give your resume to 10 people, you're going to get 10 different suggestions on how to change it. So at the end of the day, though, if you've got over 15 years of experience, yeah, I do hope it's more than one page. Absolutely, because your value too, goes well beyond, and that's, kind of how you can augment the resume and the LinkedIn,
Yep.
right? You might have some additional things on LinkedIn and then you link to it in your resume.
Yep.
So I definitely think that there's, and I've even said this too, where there's plenty of times I'm talking to someone who's not even looking for work, and we don't even have a resume to submit until they're much further even along in the process. So you can actually go through an interview right now just through what you have on your LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I mean, eventually, yes, you'll have to kind of check all the boxes.
Sure.
To go through the process, but what I in terms of that, the resume, and is there a right way, is there a wrong way? I think the other piece that might help you kind of get out of your own mindset of not being able to, see yourself objectively, is an exercise that I like to help people do is email or text 10 people that know you well or that you've worked with, and ask them what your number one gift is, or your top 3 gifts.
Yeah.
It will instantly put you in a different mindset. You're like, holy cow, I am awesome. Oh my gosh, I'm ready to write my resume now. I'm ready. Like, these are my gifts. Everyone says this about me. Like, you just get fired up, versus sometimes we are our own worst enemies.
Oh, most of the time. Like I said, I've been telling people this, like, especially marketing people that I've been working with, they are the worst at marketing themselves. They might be the best marketers in the world, but man, sometimes their resumes and LinkedIn profiles are just horrendous. And I think it's just to your point, like, be honest and reach out to people. Say, hey, I'm working on updating my resume or my LinkedIn profile. And, I just wanted some outside perspective on what it's like to work with me. And so what are top 1, 2, or 3 things that you would say about, what I'm good at or something. And you'd be surprised at the responses you get, and how much it can help you get over that hump, because I see people there like, well, should I hire a resume writer? Sure, there's nothing wrong with that, right? If you've got the money, maybe that's a good thing, but you could just start with, like you said, talking to some colleagues and figuring out what are they saying, what do they think about you, and then translating that back, right?
Absolutely. And don't use fluff words, right? Like, we know what all those things are, and we've seen them on job descriptions too, where your excellent verbal and communication skills. I hope so.
I really hope so. Yeah, but that's again going back to that story you got to tell, right? Is if you're telling a story, and I think that's where people struggle with. And I want to jump into this part here with you, Laura, is there's that line between standing out. I don't want to stand out too much. I want to look professional, but I want to stand out, but I still want to seem very professional. And everybody's got in their stuff that they're good communicators, and that they're self-starters, and that they are entrepreneurs and all this other stuff. I think it goes back to a question that I had for you specifically around imagery, around the profile. We talked about the little green the green screaming thing, and the banner image. I see a lot of people just leave it default up there. What's your advice on, again, bridging that line of being professional yet standing out when it comes to the imagery you're using for your profile?
I feel like it's 2020, and if you don't have something else that's not the stock image from LinkedIn, that you're really not that active on LinkedIn. Not that it's a good or a bad thing, but just it is what it is. And Canva is so easy to use. Again, just Google the background image that you need for LinkedIn, and you can find one easy peasy. Or talk to your company. I'm sure, again, that's an easy branding thing for all companies, that you all have the same consistent backdrop.
Yeah. Yeah, but people don't look at it that way. They don't make that jump. Uh, yeah, I think what I personally like to see, and again, this is just me personally, but I love to see a professional headshot that looks like you've taken some time to get a good picture of yourself, and post it on there. And then in the banner, I love to see things like that have to either do with your role or even a hobby. Like if you like kayaking, like show me a picture of you kayaking or something, but not in like, in a crazy way, but like, um, show some of your personality a little. It's an opportunity,
Yeah.
especially to show off a little bit about what you bring culturally to the organization too, right?
That it definitely, from a recruiter's perspective, it's that difference of, as I'm scrolling through, all the lists of who came up in my search results. For me, if I've debating, I'm like, ooh, this person looks like they're
Yeah.
they're they're a little bit different. Like,
Yep.
that's good. That's a good thing. You don't want to be cookie cutter like everyone else.
Yep.
And also, I'm personally a sucker for quotes. So I love the ones that have the quotes on them.
Yeah.
And some color. But
yeah,
it's the other piece, I will say, that we didn't talk about with your photo.
Yeah.
Is that you can go to, I wrote it down, photofeeler.com. If you've got a couple different photos you're trying to decide from, let strangers on the internet tell you which one's better.
Yeah.
Because you don't necessarily want it to be a selfie. You don't want to have it be cropped out, and you can tell it's like a family photo and you've cropped out other things.
Sure.
Like, it's really easy nowadays to take a nice one on your cell phone.
Yeah. Yep. Just try to have some natural light, and that's all you need.
That's all you need.
Okay.
That's all you need.
So I've got another question from the audience here, Laura. So Shannon asks, in a headline, should you use keywords or more of a branding statement, such as enthusiastic creative leader who ... So in that headline, should you be using, keywords or more of that branding statement, like we just talked about a little bit? Should we be having kind of that more, you called it kind of fluffy language, right?
Yeah, no fluffy language.
No fluffy language.
Try not to, because then again, you are like everyone else.
Yeah.
Right? I see creative, enthusiastic all the time. So maybe you can stand out in another way by saying something about the industry that you have expertise in. Or, you can say something about, I help blank do blank. Or, maybe your job is something that's multifaceted, and so you use multiple keywords. So there's so many examples. All you have to do is get on LinkedIn, start scrolling through and checking out other people. Like, type in, again, if you're a marketing director, type in marketing director, see what else. Just get a sense of what other people are putting on there.
Yeah.
And you might find, like, oh,
not from to your point, not just a way to look more like them, but even opportunities to stand out from that group, right?
Exactly. And again, just go from the sense of, if I'm, okay, let's say you're a marketing director and you want to work for a small company, and you know that there is going to be like heads of HR or presidents or the CEO that will potentially look at your LinkedIn profile. Yeah. From their perspective, what sort of things are they going to want to see to be able to check off the boxes of competent, professional, team player, whatever it is, The other kind of the fun thing that I can tell you, if you are specifically a job seeker right now, is you can go and compile 10 different job descriptions in a word cloud. And then the word cloud will give you the top keywords that you should include. So if these are your 10 dream jobs,
yep,
put them all in the word cloud and boom, use those keywords.
Yep. Yeah, it makes sense. You can crowdsource it yourself, right?
Exactly.
And so let's talk about my feed as a person who's job seeking. how should I be engaging? How much should I be engaging? What type of engagement should I have on LinkedIn? One piece of advice I've given people, especially if you're looking for a job, is I talked about changing that title that you have and changing your title to seeking, seeking marketing director role or seeking sales president role, and then make sure you're engaging in the feed so it's constantly showing you engaging with the community, because it's not just going to say your name, it's also going to say what you do or what you're looking for along with that. What sorts of things, Laura, have you seen like with experience, and what advice would you give people on how to use their feed and how to stay active, or how much activity should they have and what kind of activity?
So find the quote unquote thought leaders in your space. They can be local, they can be national, they can be international, and you leave thoughtful comments. And it's not like you need to be leaving 100 comments a day, but rather than saying like great article or I agree, actually say something that showcases that you have an opinion on the topic. Because what I found is when I comment on other, like, I call it, more well-known people,
Yep.
that my comment got like 26 likes.
Yep.
It's like, holy cow, I was just commenting on someone else's.
Yeah.
And so I definitely would say that is an absolute amazing strategy. And you can just set your timer for 10 minutes a day. Just set your timer for 10 minutes a day to comment on other people's stuff.
Yeah. And like you said, go and actually read the article or thing that they did and then come back with your perspective or your take on it, and contribute that back to the community. Because that's the part that I think is really important. What you're talking about, Laura, is not just to acknowledge that it exists, but to add your value on top of that thing that was shared, right?
Right. Or if you have an additional resource, a link that you can
Right,
share,
right,
or if you
right.
know of a virtual event that speaks exactly on this topic to let other people know about.
I think that's super
Value.
important, and that people need to be doing that on a regular basis, because unlike Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all these other things where likes are, about like kind of the sort of, uh, thinking about how you look to yourself. The idea with LinkedIn and that contribution is showing, has the potential of showing, your professionalism, your level of competency around a subject, and it's just more attention to that you are in that job search. It's showing people, and I tell people this all the time. Like, I'll do a job coaching session with a person, and I'll tell them, hey, let me know how it's going, right? Because if I don't hear from you for 2 or 3 months, I usually assume you got a job, right? We assume positive intent. So if if it's been months and you're not reminding people that you still are looking, right? It's going to be really hard to stay on those people's radar. So that's why I say, like, having that ability to go in and comment on things, and then maybe having, instead of the green screaming circle thing, just having seeking marketing director opportunities or something in your title will help you go a long way of staying top of mind with folks, which I think is so important these days, because we're just so much busier now that my house is a barber shop and a restaurant and a dog salon or a cat salon. Right.
All the things, yes.
Right. So, don't make it more work for those people looking to hire you, is basically my
Absolutely.
advice, right?
And then also think about when someone else makes a post of like, hey, new job posted, or this is happening. Think about all the other people then that you have potentially influenced, over the last, even if you've been doing this once a day for 30 days, that your own thought leadership actually goes up when other people kind of think of you first, if they hear about another opportunity in their network.
Well,
Right.
and that goes back to that mindset of like, I think it's important that people, if you're not comfortable with the idea of thought leadership, be a thought contributor, right?
Right.
You don't have to pretend you're some, Seth Godin or something, right? But it's trying to be that thought contributor. If you have that mentality and you take that attitude towards LinkedIn, towards the feed and the things that are happening on there, I think that's more than enough. You don't have to be some crazy guy who starts a YouTube channel or a
No, you
podcast or
don't.
something.
I mean, I've got freaking 4 kids, and people thought, I mean, my fun story is like I was coming back to work just as the pandemic hit, and so I was like, how am I supposed to work? And I've got 4 kids at home, and so I just used social media, and I only worked for however much I could those
Yep.
those first few weeks, and it to other people you seem like you're everywhere, but I'm like I only spent like an hour
Yep.
doing it, and I
Yep.
did it in between stuff on my time, and like it was just sort of that add value where you can, and for me I just like connecting people.
Yep.
And so if I was able to make even just like one connection a day, 5 connections a week, for me, like over time, that just it's that small thing that adds up to becoming a huge thing.
Yeah.
And so just think about, as a job seeker too, how else you can serve other people.
Yep.
So if you know other people who are looking for a job and you catch wind of something, you can say, gosh, I would actually like to connect you to my friend so and so.
Yeah.
Because if you give, you know that it's going to come
Yep.
back to you.
Yep. And that's the thing, back to that staying top of mind thing too, is don't just focus on LinkedIn. I mean, if you're using Instagram and Facebook 10 times a day, make sure you're telling people there you're looking for work too. A lot of people like to keep these things separate for some reason. But I think it goes back again to, you want to stay top of mind. You need people to understand the situation that you're in. And, you don't have to make it a woe is me sort of thing, but, you could give an update on, hey, I interviewed at these 3 places this week. And boy, if anybody knows anybody at those places, put in a good word for me, or something. Don't just focus on LinkedIn as part of your job search strategy. Not saying obviously recruiters are hunting down your Instagram. It's pretty rare, I would guess, but still.
You never know. I mean, we've
You
had
never know.
we've had stories. I mean, yeah.
No, it's good. So, all right, Laura, let's wrap it up here. But um, back to the common mistakes that you've seen. Are there any other ones that you want to tell us about before we sign off today that you think are really important that people understand?
The last thing I would put is any sort of metrics. So if you can, in your summary section, talk about how you add value in terms of how you've helped the company make money, save money, or improve a process that does one of those 2 things, I am instantly gravitated towards any metrics.
Stats. Want to see stats.
Yep.
Yep. Like, again, how big was that team you
value.
managed, right? How much revenue did that team was either responsible for or generated, right?
Right.
And even if you don't know the numbers, you can come up with a percentage that is viable, right? Because I know some people are like, well, I don't know how much money that made. And I'm like, well, you could probably reverse engineer the math or reach out to some other colleagues and be like, hey, that project we worked on, how big was that project?
Yeah. Size of budget that you've managed. I've managed budgets from 10 million to 50 million. Mm-hmm. I mean, any numbers that just give us a sense of the scope of responsibilities that you've had.
Yeah. Yep. No, I think that's great. Again, stats are really important. It makes you stand out. And even if it's just like, this was the size of the team I worked on, or these were the number of marketing campaigns I worked on in a year, like those things are more important for a person like myself, a hiring manager, to hear than just that you worked on campaigns.
Freaking men. Like, again, not to sometimes it's better to almost pretend like you need to write in a 4th grade like reading, like, I mean, make it so easy for people to understand what you do, because sometimes you make it more confusing, and someone especially recruiters who are managing a ton of jobs inside these big companies. They're managing everything from, the tech project to the, marketing to the sales. And so they got a million jobs swirling in their head. Make it really easy for them to digest what you do, who you do it for, and how you add value to the world.
I think that's awesome. Well, Laura, I know you've got this big webinar on Wednesday, so tell me more about what can I expect if I sign up for it. And if everybody who's here watching, check out the link down below, and you can check out what Laura is going to be talking about. So, Laura, tell us a little bit more.
Thanks for the opportunity to share. So this is actually a 3-part webinar, and no worries if you cannot make it live all 3 times. If you register, you will get the recording for all 3. But what we know is that if I come on and I just word vomit a ton of stuff, you're never going to do everything. And so one of my, who's become a dear friend in the process, who actually works directly with LinkedIn, who's taught me a ton about even the algorithm, we're breaking it down. So there's 3 workshops. The first one is all about how you optimize your profile. That's like ground, setting you up for success. Like, you got to get the basics first. Then we move into engagement and posting strategies. And then we move into, like, if you are really wanting to, as a entrepreneur, even like make money, like how, even from like a lead generation standpoint, how you kind of take it to the next level. But it'll work. Honestly, there's a tremendous value if you're a job seeker, if you're a solopreneur, if you are wanting to be a thought leader, wanting to support someone who wants to be a thought leader. It's amazing that I think especially marketers right now can be even more valuable to their sales counterparts if they can teach their salespeople how to become thought leaders, right? Because I'm sure you got a VP of sales that wants to do some more stuff on LinkedIn, but is a little timid. Like, how do I do this? How do I do this? You can be that person holding their hand.
And that's a lot of value right there.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, thanks, Laura. I want to thank you so much for joining me today. I always enjoy our conversations. I'll have you back on again real soon, because this is a subject that's not going to go away anytime soon. And thank you, everyone out there, for the great questions. I know that people will have very specific questions about their personal situation, so feel free to reach out to myself or Laura. You can find us on LinkedIn. We'd be happy to, answer any questions that people have. Right, Laura?
Absolutely. Give.
Give. All right, cool. Thanks, Laura.
Thank you, Kurt.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you for joining me today. Again, I'm Kurt, president of Foundry. If you want to check out the work we do at Foundry, you can check us out at foundrymakes.com. And if you have questions about the show, there's going to be another live show this Friday where we're going to be talking about how to get work in the user experience space, which I'm really excited to talk to Christopher Stefan from 3M about. And then over the next few weeks, we're also going to keep focusing on that job and hunt role, all the things that people are looking for. So if you have specific questions or you have specific episodes that you'd like to see, I am totally open to creating one specifically around your question. So reach out to me, either LinkedIn or leave a comment below, and we'll see you next time. Have a great rest of your week.